Billy Quarantillo versus Gavin Tucker. We got minus 110 on both sides. This is a pick'em fight. Minus 135 is what Gavin Tucker opened at. And we've seen a little bit of money coming on Billy Quarantillo since then. So let's start off with Billy Q. 15-2, riding a solid win streak right now. He hasn't lost since he lost to Michel Quinones, who actually, I believe, lost to Sage Northcutt when he was in the UFC. I just want to confirm that, yeah, he lost to Sage Northcutt, and that actually has been his last fight. Uh, yeah, that was his last fight. Weird to say that, but let's get back to Billy Q. So he's riding a what is that, 8 fight winning streak. All of them pretty much, yeah, all of them except two of them being by finish. The guy's a killer. Which is funny to say because the last time around, Kyle Nelson goes out there and calls him, he's a survivor, not a killer. And unfortunately for him, he found out the hard way. You know what I mean? Billy Quarantillo, I love his style. I love the way he fights. He's very aggressive, always on the front, always has his foot on the gas. The guy's moving forward pretty much from minute 1 to minute 15 or up until he gets a finish. He did see a decision for the first time against Spike Carlisle 2 fights ago, but that was a fight where Spike had a really good first round and then started to taper off a little bit, and that's where we saw Billy start to take over. More often than not, with the exception of a couple fights, Billy Quarantillo is always kind of fighting back from a deficit, that his opponent starts off with. They take him down, they land some good strikes, but it's always Billy Q kind of just climbing back and getting that finish, just as he did in the Camilla Quirk fight, or Camuela Kirk, and the Spike Carlisle fight, and even the Kyle Nelson fight. Nelson started off pretty strong in that first round, but obviously later on in that first round, we saw Billy really start to wear on him. But see, Billy's style is very interesting because, again, it's very much based off of his pressure, his forward movement, and his desire to not let you breathe. And that's what it really comes down to. And that's what really screws fighters over. So, like, technically, a lot of fighters are actually better than him, but it's his mindset and his fighting style of just always moving forward no matter what's coming back at him. Now, it's going to take a certain kind of fighter to be able to, one, withstand that kind of pressure, two, have the technical abilities to be, quicker to the punch, and then three, just being a better overall fighter. And I think that's what we might have here in Gavin Tucker. Now, the only real question mark we have, or kind of flaw that we have in Gavin Tucker's game, is the Rick Glenn fight. So that was his only ever loss. That was close to 3 years ago, over 3 years ago now, where he lost that fight. Ends up coming back in the same stadium. He comes back 10 months later, or sorry, almost 2 years later, just close to 2 years later, in the same arena. I believe it was the Rogers Arena over there in Edmonton. And he goes out there and exercises his demons. He goes out there, has a really good fight against Sung Woo Choi, gets the rear naked choke in the third round, and then once again takes roughly about a year off and comes back and beats Justin James via rear naked choke once again in the third round. So we're seeing his evolution as a fighter. You know what I mean? I've heard from some inside sources that he had a very bad weight cut, or not even just a bad weight cut, but just rehydrated very poorly. Apparently they tried a different way of rehydrating, and it really affected his cardio. Not to mention the fact that he kind of went balls to the walls in that first and beginning of that second round against Rick Glenn. And Rick Glenn, he's a savvy fighter. Like, he had 25 fights going into that fight against Gavin Tucker, who was only coming into his 11th fight at that time. You know what I mean? So he had a ton of experience. Stayed the course and just had the same pressure from minute 1 to minute 15 and just never let up. And it sounds similar to Billy Q here, but the thing is, Rick Glenn doesn't really give you an inch in the beginning. Like, Gavin Tucker wasn't really having a super amount of success against Rick Glenn. Yeah, Rick Glenn dropped him in that first round, and that's where I think we really start to see the tide shift. But that's, in my opinion, that's the difference between Rick and Billy, is that Rick, he's looking to take your head off, not really take your head off, but slowly and methodically pick you apart from minute 1 to minute 15. Whereas Billy Q, it's just like, okay, I'm going to go out there and throw these strikes, but I'm not really going to put much on them. I'm just letting my pressure kind of get to you. But I think if he does that, he's going to get countered a lot here by Gavin Tucker, who is much faster than him. Billy does have a little bit of speed issues when he's fighting a guy like this. We'll definitely see it. He throws in combinations, which is something that I like. They come a little bit slower, but obviously they're a lot more effective later in the fight when his opponent is already sucking wind. But I wonder how much he's going to be able to take the damage from Gavin Tucker early in those fight, or early in the rounds, or at least early in that fight to begin with. Now we've seen Billy Quarantillo's takedown defense not be the greatest, but that could also be in part with him being a black belt, high level jiu-jitsu player, and him kind of just inviting that. Like we've seen him, kind of just run circles around some guys in jiu-jitsu, and I'm not sure if he'll be able to completely do that here against Gavin Tucker, who's a very high level jiu-jitsu player himself too. I believe he's a black belt. I'm absolutely certain that he's a black belt, and we've seen it shown off in a couple of his fights that he's been able to get rear naked chokes finishes over some of these guys. Um, I, I don't know which way that we'll see Tucker kind of approach this. Is he going to just try to take this fight to the ground where we don't get as pressuring of a Billy Quarantillo? Obviously, you could possibly reverse positions or throw up submissions and kind of make Gavin Tucker work from there. But I think that's a little easier to deal with on the ground than it is like a guy kind of just marching you down the entire time. But again, that kind of plays into Gavin Tucker's game as well too, which with him being a lot quicker to the punch, beating up the body a lot, which I think is going to be very important here against Billy, who has a great gas tank. I think if Gavin Tucker targets the body nice and early, he should be able to suck the wind out of Billy Q, and maybe not have as rough of a third round or late second round as most of Billy Q's opponents have had in the past. Now, I feel like Gavin Tucker is the perfect mold to go out there and beat a guy like Billy. Technically much better. He's faster. His jiu-jitsu is up to par. But the only flaw, like I said, was that Rick Glenn fight where we saw pressure absolutely break him. But I truly believe that Rick and Billy are just completely different fighters, which is why I don't think it'll have too much of an effect here. Now, in terms of the line movement, I'm recording this on the Wednesday before fight week. So this right now it's December 2nd, and I'm expecting once the fights this weekend conclude and we get into UFC 256 fight week, I think we'll see some money come in on Billy Q. I think we'll see some people go back and be like, oh, look at this Rick Glenn fight. This is kind of similar to how Billy Q fights. That's the type of fight that we're expecting to happen. I'm going to bet Billy Q. Now, I think that's where people might get a little bit twisted, as I believe that, again, Rick and Billy, completely different fighters. One thing that Gavin did struggle with against Rick Glenn, which definitely demoralizes a fighter, was his inability to get Rick Glenn down. He definitely used a lot of energy trying to get Rick Glenn down, whereas I feel like if he wants to get Billy down, he should be able to get Billy down, and that will do more for his confidence. He's not using as much. He's not using as much energy or cardio to try to get Billy down. It's a lot easier to get him down, at least from what I've seen off of footage. So it's going to be interesting to see how that part of it plays out. But I am siding with Gavin here, and not because he's Canadian like myself, but and it's funny that Billy is fighting two Canadians in a row. We don't have many Canadians in the UFC, so to get two in a row is fucking hilarious in my opinion. But I think Gavin is just a better all around fighter. And now, as long as we don't see him have like a cardio dump or anything like that Rick Glenn fight, and I'm not just calling it a cardio dump, sorry, like I do want to give credit where it's due to Rick Glenn, who just pressured him and chipped away at him that entire fight. Whereas Billy Q he's going to keep moving forward, but I think he's going to get outstruck here by Gavin, who will not discriminate, you know what I mean, in terms of where he's throwing his strikes. So we could see him mixing up with the leg kick, the body kick, or the head kick, or even, just combinations. Again, I think the striking is just completely on different levels here. I think Gavin Tucker is just a much, much better fighter, and the speed is going to be very important for him here to land quickly before Billy is able to, and that may hopefully deter the forward movement of Billy. But we haven't really seen him we've seen him beaten pretty bad and then come back and get a victory. So I'm not sure how much it can really deter Billy Q's, his motivation and his energy to continue to move forward. So very tough fight. I completely understand why it's at a pick'em. I do think that we're going to see a little bit more money coming in on Billy Q here. And if that's the case, I do like me some Gavin Tucker at plus money. So I'm going to wait and see how this line moves out. But I do think that Tucker is the much better fighter. I don't think that we'll see him collapse under the pressure like Glenn. If anything, I think we'll see him be a little bit more successful, even getting this fight to the ground, playing it safe a little bit there, as safe as you can against a black belt like Billy Q. But I do think Gavin Tucker is a high level jiu-jitsu player himself too, so I think he should hold his own there. But on the feet is where we'll truly see the difference in skill here, and I think that's in Gavin Tucker's corner. So once again, I'll go with Gavin Tucker to win this fight via decision. I'm not sure if he'll be able to finish Billy. Billy's been quite durable, as we obviously know. He did get knocked out by Michel Quinones in round one. That was for AFC. On the Ultimate Fighter, he was on the Ultimate Fighter and lost a decision to Saul Rogers, and then he got lost a decision to JP Reese in his third ever fight. So only gotten finished once. Good durability. I'll go with Gavin Tucker to win this fight via decision.